In this video, we are going to be talking about the CompareValidator Control. We described the CompareValidator Control briefly in one of our previous video, where we used it to compare the values that a user has typed into the form field. We compared it to one of the built-in types, such as the integer, because we wanted to make sure that the user has entered a whole number into the form field. Otherwise, the user gets an error message. Another type of check that you can use the CompareValidator to perform is to check the data input from the user to another fixed value that has been set. For example, you could set a fixed value of this message, and if you require the user to type this message as they have seen it on the screen, then that's when you use the CompareValidator. You want to compare that what the user has typed is actually equals to yes, I agree, before you can allow them to get into the website, because you need the consent. So so you can compare to a built-in data type such as a date value. You can make sure that the user has entered a date. You can also make sure that user has entered a fixed value that you set in advance, and also you can use it to perform the third type of check, which is to check one form field against another form field. So this is usually common with password check. So say for example you want the user to type their password twice, and you want to make sure that the password are the same before you actually allow them to continue. Then you can use the CompareValidator to compare two form fields to make sure that they have equal data inside of them. There are 6 properties that you should set if you want to use the CompareValidator control, and these are the control to validate, which is the important property to always set, the control to compare, and if you want to use the third type of check, you have to state the control to compare with, so that you can compare two form fields. Then the value to compare, this is used for the fixed value. If you have a fixed value, you can check to see if the value of is equal to, less than, greater than, and you can use the operator. The operator is the less than or greater than operators. You can use the type, which is the data type. You can check to see if the number is a double, such as decimal, or integer, such as whole number, and such as date or currency. And you should set the error message, which is the text property. So let's head over to VWD now and see how those validators are used. So as you can see, I've actually dragged 4 different CompareValidators to describe the 3 types of validation that we can perform. So the first one here is going to perform a check to make sure that the value that we type here is a whole number. So that's why I said here that remember, you always remember to set the control to validate. So this is going to validate the control text box 1. Then I set the operator to be a data type check. So I want to check data type. I want to make sure that it's an integer. So this is the error message, enter a whole number. So the second one is the same as this. The only difference is that change the data type check to date. So unless we enter a date, then it's not going to allow us to continue. So the third one is the check to make sure that these 2 input fields are actually they contain the same data. So I want the user to type in the password, and whatever they type in here, I want to make sure that it's the same as what they type in there. So you have to configure the CompareValidator. You have to set the control to validate. I want to validate the text box 4. Then I want to compare the value to the control to compare, which is the text box 3. So this is the ID of the control to compare with. And lastly, okay, let me see if there's another property for that. Yes, also you have to make sure that you are checking to make sure that the operator is equal. So I want to make sure that the values inside is equal. You can also use it to compare that. For example, if you want to make sure that the value that user has entered into the second text box is greater than the value they've entered into. So for example, if somebody entered 16 here, you want to make sure that the value inside the second text box is greater than 16. So what you have to do is you have to use the operator. Where's the operator? You're here to make sure that you select greater than rather than equal. I'm checking for equality sign here. So, and last one is the they want to check a fixed value. So I've typed in a value to compare here. So the value to compare is yes. So I want to make sure that whatever the user type into the text box 5 is actually equals to yes. So if they don't type in yes, then we won't validate. We want to get their consent. So this is how you do it. So let's run the website and put everything into let's see how it works. So let's go ahead and do everything right. So let's enter a date here, enter a password. I'm going to enter 1234, and I'm going to enter same thing here, 1234. Do you agree? Yes. So if we press the button now, because we've entered everything correctly, we won't get any error message. So that means our website is fine. So every data that is required has been entered. But if I enter something like 12.7 here, if I should press the button, I get an error message saying enter your whole number. So that means the validation is working correctly. So let's go ahead and leave that to be fine. So the error message is gone again. So this is expecting a date. If I don't enter a date format, we're going to get an error. It said enter a date value, and this date is not very smart. So if you enter, for example, 12th of December 1960, it's not going to recognize that. It only recognizes this type of date format, 2009. So this kind of format, it recognizes it. Then the next one, remember that the password, you can set the text mode of this text box to be password. So if you change it to password mode, then we will not be able to see what we're typing. The reason why I've left it on is because so you can see what I'm typing, so you can make sure that it's equal. So if I should remove the 4 now to make it 1, see, we got an error because the values do not match. If I enter 4 here, it goes away. If I enter 5 here, error comes back. If I enter 5 in the second one, error goes away. So the value must be equal. Just like I said before, you can also check to make sure that the value is greater than what is here or is less than. And lastly is this one. So if I should enter even yes in small capital, we should get an error because it said type yes in capital. So the value must actually be the same thing that you see. So we must enter big capital yes for us to get an any other thing that I type in, it's going to result in an error. So this is how you use the compare validator. I hope that you've learned something new here, and I'm going to see you in the next video. Thank you.